Tonight's special guest is Tina Grenville. Tina is the author of a new book called A Life in 3 Acts. The book cover says, Romantic Entanglements and Dangerous Consequences, the extraordinary life of a former top model and television star. We welcome Tina Grenville as our special guest on The Beat Goes On. Tina Grenville, welcome to The Beat Goes On. In our humble studio, because in fact, you have been in studios all your life, haven't you, as an actress and a model, and throughout Australia?
Doesn't look humble to me.
Oh, thank you very much. So it's been a wonderful and exciting life for Tina Grenville, hasn't it? And you decided one day, I'm going to put it all into a book form.
No, I didn't decide. I was asked.
You were asked, were you?
Yes, doesn't that sound grand? Yeah, I mean, the original editor 3 years ago of HarperCollins, Lorraine Day, asked me to submit 5 chapters of a possible story, which she would then submit to a committee that met every month, and they chose my book. Unfortunately for me, Lorraine left for personal reasons 6 months after, and to be followed by a temporary editor and then a permanent editor, this took about 3 years. And so my book was really an inherited project. So we've all struggled with it.
What was it about Tina Grenville's life that was worthy of a book?
Well, that's true. Who would know? But what happened was, it was quite a coincidence. My dog came down from America, and there was a great kerfuffle about getting him into the country because they have rabies up there. And Max Cryer, who you know, rang me and said, look, I know Diane Howarth, who writes for The Animal's Voice. And Diane Howarth came out because they were doing a whole series on what it cost to bring the animals back from overseas. They had Europe, they had England, they didn't have America. So she came to interview my dog Jack, which she did. We got talking, and I'd written some stories on early Wellington, and she took them, and she had a look, and she said, look, I'm going to show these to my editor. When the editor saw the actual era of the stories, she rang me and she said, look, you don't happen to know, do you? She said, this is a pretty long shot. And about 1958, a very beautiful bisexual head waiter dived off the wharf in Julius Katchen, the international pianist's dressing gown, and was never seen again. Do you know anything about it? I said, yes, I was the wife, and the young son was our son Ashley. So then she said, oh my goodness, can you write about it? And I said, well, I'll try. And I said, everything? And she said, as much as you can.
And here it is. It's called A Life in 3 Acts. But in fact, you have told me that it has been cut down from you. It's only about a third of what you actually wrote.
It's a quarter.
Quarter?
I wrote. I prayed for writer's block, really, or at least I'm sure the publisher did. I wrote a quartet. So it's really remarkable that it hangs together at all.
Well, can I tell you that I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Did you really? Are you just saying that?
No, I'm not just saying that. I do get a lot of books and I don't get time to read them, but I did get time to read this and I got into it and I couldn't put it down. It was really great. We're both a similar age group, and so I was reading your life and I knew most of the people, the places you'd been.
A parallel
universe.
Yes, yeah, okay.
Well, let's look at the fact that you were able to write a book even 4 times this size, which means that you've done a lot of things in this wonderful life of yours.
No, I'm just a stickler for detail, that's all.
A stickler for detail. I did notice that
did you?
In the book that you would be describing your flat in Sydney, and you'd go into great detail, and we're talking about 1971. And I kind of remember the flat I had in 1971, let alone the detail of the cupboards or the...
oh, but I love the houses. You see, in one of those paragraphs it says, choosing a house is a bit like choosing a man, the same problems. Well, you're looking at a house and it might be perfect, you know, the right size garden and a good kitchen, but it just doesn't have the wow factor. You see another house, run down, but it could be developed to make it more livable. Then you see another house, no kitchen, and a house with no kitchen, which is the most important room in the house, you know, as well as the bedroom and others, but mainly the kitchen is the hub. So you see, it's very hard to get everything in one house, like it's very hard to get everything in one man. Like they think it's very hard to get everything in one woman.
Well, let's start at the beginning.
All right.
Are we allowed to inquire of the age, or shall we skip that very important part?
Age what?
The age of Tina Grenville.
Oh no, I don't care. I'm 73 on September the 13th next month.
September the 13th. So what year was that when you arrived?
That was the month and the year World War II was declared.
You think it could have been your fault?
No, that's far too egotist.
And it was in Wellington.
Yes.
Wellington, of all places.
Why, of all places?
I don't know.
Oh dear.
So you had a wonderful childhood.
Yes,
You had
magical.
a magical childhood. But you ended up at the age of 17, 18 as a model. You had... Would you say that you were a good-looking young girl at the age of 17?
I was very skinny, but I apparently had bones. Well, I had those all right. Wish I had them now. But that's what was important. I was actually discovered, as they say, in James Smith's by an unruly-looking photographer who
recognised that you had bones.
Had recognised the bones. One man had done that before when Mummy had taken my sister and me to a portrait photographer, and he had said the same thing, so we thought, oh well, maybe this is, you know, a good thing. But when I say modelling, that was Wellington, and I just used to go to this man's studio and be photographed for hats and coats and things. I didn't meet anybody else, no other models.
Okay.
It was just me and him, really.
Now, you went on to great fame and fortune in Australia. In fact, now a lot of New Zealanders didn't see your fame in Australia, did they? We didn't have the same access to Australia then, but...
You didn't, or I think they got the black and white sitcom I did with my son, I think, yes. TV
The Godfather, was it?
Yes,
Yeah.
The Godfathers, it's plural. Otherwise it gets muddled up with the really famous Godfather. It wasn't that. And that was sold to TVNZ. I think it came in a 5 o'clock time slot or something, whereas in Sydney it was prime time.
And then you were in another big series in Australia called The Restless Years.
The Restless Years, yes. Oh God. Yes, it was all very restless.
So you've had a wonderful life as a model slash actress.
Well,
or is
I finished...
Or is it actress slash model?
Well, it was really slash nothing. They were separate. And the other thing was that I stopped modelling at 30 and then devoted the rest of the time to just,
acting.
yes.
Now, at one stage, you were fodder for the women's weekly magazines, the scandal rags, the truth type. You had a few little personal things going on in the background that.
Oh, they weren't in the background. That was the problem. It was very much in the foreground.
So, I mean, you were receiving as much publicity back then in Sydney, you know, as say today a Charlotte Dawson or a
Rachel Hunter.
Rachel Hunter would receive. And
probably.
How did that leave you?
No, rather bewildered, really, that anybody would be interested. You know, it was extraordinary. The other thing, and I've never said this because I've only just thought of it, overseas, when you're a proper celebrity, I mean a world celebrity, where you've, and now, of course, with all the paparazzi and the long telephoto lenses and things, you, or they, I shouldn't say you, they live in a world that has got so much money, they can afford protection. They live in beautiful houses that are security. Their children go to schools that everybody who are there, they're...
in a bubble, a security bubble, don't they?
Well, sort of, but the main thing is that the children of famous actors are going to school with children of other famous actors, musicians, artists, writers, so to them it's just normal. But whereas Ashley, my son, was going to an ordinary school each time and with children who were not, didn't have parents like me or a mother like me. And I remember Ashley, very young, opening a magazine at a child's place and saying, "Oh, which one is your mummy?" And the child said, "What?" And she, "That's my mummy." "No, it isn't," he said, "you're a liar," and hit him. And that was Ashley's first experience of knowing that
his mother was different.
Well, did something different to make a living than the other mothers. And of course his stepfather, John Crawley, was an artist, and he'd, you know, go in and ask where the easel was, and they thought he was being pretentious, but it was just normal for him.
Now, in the book, you have had a number of men in your life.
Oh, I hope so. Wouldn't that be awful?
Now, we've only got a 10-minute show, so we won't go into all the details.
Oh, good.
I'm going to leave that up to the people, because it is quite a fascinating story.
Oh, thank you.
The people you met, the relationships, etc. So if we give too much away, they won't buy the book, will they?
Oh, no, that'd be dreadful.
Now, but you chose, in the end, you could have lived for the remainder of your life in Australia. You built a great life over there, but you decided to come back to New Zealand. Now, that's interesting. Why?
Oh, they all say this. Oh, it's a better life for my children. But in reality, you know, perhaps nobody's asking them to do work anymore. I actually left a very well, how can I say, well-publicised soap opera, which ran for another 8 years.
The Restless Years.
Yes.
Yes.
And I would never have had to worry about money again had I stayed. But I didn't stay, and I felt my children at that time were very young, 2 and 8, and I thought didn't want them to be brought up as Australian children. There's nothing wrong with Australian children. I can just hear them now. Oh, what's wrong with Australian children? I loved Australia. In fact, you know, from the taxi drivers who said to me, oh, hello, darling, from the Shaky Isles, are you? And I said, how do you know? My accent gave me away all the time. I could be English for about 2 hours, which was the duration of a play, and then after that it was like, oh, you know, taking off your clothes at the end of the day. Oh, I can speak normally again. We came back, but I've got to say it was a mistake.
Really?
Yes, it was. It's one of my regrets that we didn't stay in Australia. It was hard yakka here. It was hard to get work. It was unfriendly, really. Almost as if to say, oh, well, you know, she might be a soap star in Sydney, but we'll bring her down to size. We won't give her anything to do. And of course, it was very demoralising.
Well, there will be many of our viewers out there who probably lived in Australia at that time will remember the Restless Years.
Oh, they will, because it ran, and then of course there were the endless repeats. If they remember anything, they always remember the voice. And as my little daughter said, and the fact that Mummy has apples in her cheeks. They're called cheekbones, and everybody mentions those, you see, but Sophie always thought that I was like a hamster storing apples in my cheek.
Looking back over your life, do you consider yourself blessed?
I feel blessed in having had 3 children under difficult circumstances who haven't turned out, you know, extremely disadvantaged in some way or emotional.
They're all lovely, normal children.
Well, I wouldn't say they're very normal. I don't know really what you mean by normal, because it's a very difficult thing to really understand.
They're not in perimeter.
Oh, God, no. No. So that's, yes, so I feel blessed about that.
Just to finish, I think our viewers would love to have a copy of this book.
Oh, I hope so.
And we're going to be very generous and say we're going to give 3 of them away. And can we thank your publisher for that?
Oh, I'm sure. HarperCollins.
Yeah.
Yes.
A nice little question to qualify them. They're going to email Gerard at The Beat Goes On. And the simple little question is, what is the title of the book? In fact, it's called A Life in 3 Acts. And there's another act to go, I'm sure, isn't there?
Well, unless I die tomorrow. Yes.
Another act. So if you'd like to, as I say, email Gerard, The Beat Goes On, Tina Grenville, A Life in 3 Acts, and we'll announce the winner next week. Tina Grenville, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you for coming in here today, all the way from Piha.
Thank you.
We only touched briefly on it. It's all in the book.
It's all in the book.
Thank you, Tina.
Bye-bye.